When we consider the data center, we often overlook why it's called the data center. After all, it isn't the server center or the network center or even the application center. It's called the data center because the lifeblood of any company is its data. We are now in the realm of petabytes of storage becoming commonplace. Mid-sized companies have hundreds of terabytes. Large companies have petabytes, and very large companies are getting to tens of petabytes. And this growth will continue, and the bar will keep being raised again and again over time. This results in more IT infrastructure being managed by the same finite resources. We must maintain costs, reduce risks, optimize our systems, and keep everything running efficiently. In the midst of all this, moving data from one set of systems to another is an ongoing process that is cumbersome, error-prone, costly, and inefficient. And yet it is an ever-present reality in the data center. It's fundamental, it's a constant, and it's critical to the business. Large companies can take 6 or more months to complete a major data migration project. The planning phase alone can take 2 to 3 months. Additionally, the recurring collection and maintaining configuration information is a spreadsheet nightmare. The reason companies spend endless cycles is that they don't have a solution for making migration seamless. It often requires a team of 10, 15, 20 people to implement a project from beginning to end. Additionally, these projects can cost companies millions of dollars, and the process is still vulnerable to error, and these errors can really damage the business. Interestingly, data movement, data migration has not been an area of industry-wide innovation. Now, this is startling given all of the realities I just described. Recently, I had a discussion with the CEO of SANpulse, Peter Mehta. SANpulse is a company focused on providing the software and services to implement complex data moves, migrations, and optimization. I also talked to one of their customers to understand the realities faced by an IT professional managing petabytes of data storage and his experiences before and after working with SANpulse and their SANlogics software. So Peter, thank you for talking to me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely. So give us an overview of your company, SANpulse.
Sure. SANpulse is a storage optimization firm focusing with a core technology called SANlogics.
Okay.
And we've been able to help optimize hundreds of petabytes of data across several large enterprises on a global level. Well, the number one problem that most of these customers have is whether through organic or inorganic growth, they've become behemoths in terms of storage capacity and have not been able to grasp what that infrastructure looks like. And the first thing that we do is through an agentless means be able to capture the entire infrastructure all the way from servers through the switches to the arrays, all the way down to the spindle on which it sits. So give you an end-to-end mapping, what we call a blueprint, and an understanding of your infrastructure so you can make informed decisions, whether it's to optimize, retier, migrate, consolidate, etc.
Let's talk about what SANlogics is. SANlogics is software. It's agentless. It will do an analysis and discovery of your SAN environment and give you the information. It will then work with existing data movers, so you're not doing the data movement.
That is correct.
But it integrates with third-party data movers, and based on that, it will also execute all the necessary files to implement those data moves, and then it will verify and clean things up and things of that nature.
I mean, we basically leverage native APIs and CLIs to collect data across various means. Take that from the host side across all flavors of OS, all those major switch vendors, and are able to correlate that using the intelligence that's built into SANlogics, and allow you to look at views from various angles, do audits across it from all three different angles, from the host side, what does it see in storage, what does the storage see in terms of host connectivity, and from the switch end. And then be able to take all that, apply best practices, whether they be internal or external, and give you audit flags against that. And then from there, drive the automation through its own creation, because it has a repository of all the command lines, and basically can be customized, including incorporating naming conventions and whatnot. So the process is extremely seamless.
I was speaking to one of your customers recently about this very thing, and in his view there were 3 stages to the whole data migration process, and there's a number of reasons why we migrate data, and we'll get into that. But there is the discovery process, exactly what you were talking about, getting that visibility, understanding what the infrastructure is, right? Then it's the process of doing the data migration, and then it's the cleanup afterwards. And in his view, the thing that's really important is having that efficient discovery process and really getting the information about your environment. Because if you don't have that, then the other two legs of that stool begin to break down.
Absolutely. It's knowing what you have, how it's laid out today, what is it connected to?
Right.
Because at the end, storage is a function of a larger composite, which includes the business which actually uses that storage. One of the challenges is that even missing one of the ones and zeros becomes critical, right? Missing the understanding that if it's clustered, if you miss one of the servers, that's part of that cluster. So understanding that environment and planning it out properly is the most critical part of any kind of optimization or consolidation effort that takes place.
When you engage with a customer, what is the process from beginning to end?
Sure. So we'll go into a customer, and the first thing we ask them to do is allow us to come into a blueprint.
Right.
Allow us to come and understand what your environment is. Many times bring greater visibility to you in understanding what your environment is, and then be able to take that and create from SANlogics itself, which is a key differentiator, actionable output. Because one of the challenges is that a lot of these customers will have bought point solutions in the past, which do some type of discovery. The challenge is, what do I do with that information as the next step? Through SANlogics, it not only takes that discovery process and gives it to you in various formats, whether it's management reporting or operational reporting or engineering reporting, but then creates all the work files that you would need to execute on that decision that you've made. So now you're empowering your teams to avoid the risk, do it quicker because you're taking everything through an automated function, and be able to scale to meet timelines. And all of this at the end has cost reduction implications by default because of the automation that's in. We went into a customer recently and we identified 95 terabytes of reclaimable space. 95 terabytes out of an analysis of a total environment of roughly 1 petabyte that we analyzed. That means almost 10% could be reclaimed. Not only did we identify it, we were able to show them how you could reclaim it using SANlogics from an automation standpoint.
In speaking with one of your customers about this very thing, they loved the aspect of the fact that you guys did all the discovery, and then you were able to create those work files, gave them a lot more control over the environment, simplified the whole process so that the scripts and the CLI commands and all of these things, the host configurations, all of these things were taken care of by you, so that you really taken something that is typically very manual and very, very people intensive, and automating that process, which fundamentally is, I believe, is what good technology needs to do, It needs to take cumbersome processes that are manually intensive and automate them.
I'll give you a classic example. We went into a project where we were moving somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 servers, and the customer had a timeline that if they didn't move out of that premise within a 6-month period, they would face $600,000 in net lease payments. And it would be charged on a quarterly basis. So the impact was $1.8 million. By us coming in and being able to do that in an efficient manner, automating, and then being able to move at the speed of business. So typically when you go into a customer, the customer will say, so how much do you think you can migrate? The question we ask is, how much can you handle? Because we can take that throttle and put it all the way up or bring it all the way down depending on what you need.
Customer that I was speaking to just the other day, it went from a 6-week process to do 300 servers to a 3-week process to do the same number of servers. Is that typical? You see that very often?
Yeah, absolutely. On an average, when you're doing this manually, just because of a lot of the efforts being serial, a lot of the risk involved, you'll see most companies try and average between 15 and 25 hosts, SAN-attached hosts, to be migrated over a given cutover or a given period. We are currently averaging anywhere between 80 and 95 hosts. So we're really able to scale it up, and that's because the business can only move that many. You've got bandwidth issues and other limitations.
Some of these data migration projects where you're moving hundreds of servers can take teams of 15 to 20 people in order to do these moves, and that's usually a third-party organization. Plus, they then have to assign their own people to it as well to coordinate and to project manage.
our team has never expanded beyond 5 people on any project.
Right. Who's your ideal customer? Are you going after just the large guys? What's the minimum bar that you think is appropriate for your solution in your company?
It's a good question. As of today, all our customers are the Fortune 2000s or the Fortune 1000s. Because currently we offer it as a solution where we'll go in and do a lot of the work. The more complex the environment, the more value we bring. So most of the engagements that we've been involved hundreds of servers, hundreds of terabytes of data, many times into the petabyte range. But as we evolve the solution into being able to offer SANlogics to be utilized by the customer and empower the customer, that will now allow us to be able to spread that marketplace into outside of not just enterprise, but into that mid-sized customer.